I'm now going to show you how to make line graphs, and I've already prepared over here a data table with raw data, and of course you already realize that there is something wrong here at several levels. First of all, it doesn't look very nice. That's a cosmetic issue, but there's an even worse problem. You see that the number of decimal places is not correct because your thermometer gave you a reading to the 10th of a degree. So this was 85.0, 95.0, 75.0, and so on. You have to make sure that all of them have the correct number and the same number of decimal places. That's too much, that's too little, but now all of those that have a decimal 0,0 are indicated. Here, number one, problem one resolved. Beaker 1, Beaker 2, and Beaker 3 are completely meaningless titles. I do not know how Beaker 1 is different from Beaker 2 and Beaker 3. Is it a different color? Different insulation? What is it? I have no idea. Okay. And over here we have time in days. Oh, that's quite a long cooling time for beakers. I assume that the beakers have contain hot water, and then you allowed them to cool for several days. Well, I mean, if this is basically what you've done, well, then so be it. I would say in reality, it's probably minutes would probably be the better units, but forget about it right now. It's just a demonstration because I want to show you how to make graphs. So I'm going to take points off here on several levels because it's not a very nice table, but that's not the point for right now. First of all, you do notice that you start at 0. That's really important. You have to start with a time of 0 if time is your independent variable. So let's do the following. Let's make a graph, and I'm going to show you first the wrong way of making a graph. Okay, so don't do that. You mark the table, and then you go over here, insert, and then you click over here, line graph, because time is a continuous variable. Okay, and you want to insert a line, and then you want to, I don't know, you choose this one over here, click, and then you have a nice graph. Let's make it a little bit smaller here again. You have a nice graph. But there's some problem over here because how many lines do I see? I see 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Why is that? Because this line over here, which is going up, is the time in days. It made a line for this one, for this one, for this one, and for this one. And that's of course not what we want. We want to have the computer use time as the x, as the independent variable, as the x value, and the temperature over here as the y value. But right now it will actually use the time also as one of the values to plot, and that's not correct. And what does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what does this mean? These are not the days. It goes all the way to 12. Okay, so this is really wrong. The reason is because, I know you're gonna hate this, because for making a line graph you do not use a line graph in Excel. That's the confusion here. Because I use line graph, but you do not use a line graph when you want to make a line graph. So I erase this here, and I will use this one over here, and I will now insert. Do not go to line graph. That's wrong. You have to go to scatter graph. Some Excel versions call this XY diagram or XY plot diagram. It says here XY chart. Okay, if you read the little text box, it says here scatter, insert a scatter chart, also known as an XY chart. So you have to use this one here, and now you can use, if you want to, you can use, you can also indicate points. But don't do that. Just plot the markers, only plot the points. And now the following will happen. If you do that, you will now see it goes from 0 to all the way up to 12 and then to 14. At 12 you have 1, 2, 3 values. This is correct. It goes from 0 to 12. So it will now use x. The first column here, it will use now as the x value. And we have beaker 1, 2, and 3 here. This should be the temperature. So what I have to do now is I have to add now proper units, axis, tile, all of these things. I'm not going to do that right now because that's a different issue. This is the cosmetics right now. I want to show you how to make a line of best fit. So I move this over here to the side. And beaker 1, 2, and 3 is completely meaningless. If you write something like that, I'm going to take points off. So you now plotted your raw data, and now you have to connect the dots somehow, well, or not, or what are you going to do? I say a line of best fit is if you draw a smooth curve. And then students do the following. I will now show you what some students do. I will repeat myself, and I will also show X scatter and think, I'm going to use this one over here. Okay? And they do the following, because now, do you see, now it draws a smooth curve through the point. It doesn't connect them in straight lines, but with a nice round line. No, wrong, points off. That's not a line of best fit. All the way gone. Okay? So, what you do is the following. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Let me zoom in here into the graph a little bit more. Okay. You click on one of the data series. Then you go over here into, I forgot where it is, layout. The layout tab. So you first click into one of these points and you see that all of them are marked. You click layout and it says over here, not error bars, but you click Trendlinie. And now it asks you, which one do you want? Which trend line do you want? Well, of course you want to have the trend line which gives you the best result. The question is, what is that? You could actually say maybe it's a linear trend line. And now you're forcing a line here. And then let's try the following. What about having a linear trend line for this here as well? I mark the red one, click trend line and the linear one. That's not a trend line for the red one. And for the blue one, I'm also going to use a linear trend line. And then you say, that's my line of best fit. But there's a problem here. Look, especially over here as for the red data series over here for Beaker 2. Actually, it's not a straight line. Actually, it's a nice little curve over here. So you're forcing a straight line where there is no straight line. So you say these points are kind of off. They don't really fit that well. It fits okay maybe over here a little bit, but actually for the red one it doesn't fit. So maybe it's the wrong trend line. So what do? You click on the trend line and you delete the trend line again. You have to click right on the line and you delete it again. And now let's try again. We click into the red data series, into Beaker 2, Trendlinie, and let's try a different one, an exponential one. That could be a little bit better. Okay, and you see that it fits a little bit better. This point is a little off. Okay, so I erase it again and I keep on experimenting because I would like to, or more trend line options, and I would like to see, well, which one could it be, or a logarithmic one maybe. And it says some trend lines cannot be calculated from the data containing negative or zero values. I don't have a negative or zero value here. It somehow doesn't like to use a logarithmic one here. Okay, does not like to use a large. It doesn't even draw it properly. Where is it? It says here logarithmic over here, and it doesn't even draw it. Didn't like that. You know what? Rückgängig. So, wrong trend line. More trend line options. I like to have the polynomial one. How is that? Because with a polynomial one, you can actually, by increasing it, isn't this nice? You can adjust the trend line to actually, until it fits really nicely. And what you could do is you could do that. Now all the points are connected, right? No, that's not the trend line either. That's not the real way it is. There's no bump here, probably. So you're overdoing it. So I would say that probably this one would be quite nice, either second or third order, and makes almost no difference. Okay, so so it's a polynomial of order 2, or you can try. Well, what about a power one? It doesn't. It didn't accept that. It formed its chart area. It knocked me out. So I have to go back in again. Maybe one with a power of something. No, it doesn't like to do that either. See. I make it backwards. That's it. Okay, I undo all of these steps here now, or I can simply erase. You know what? I simply erase it like this. Okay, so you have to now experiment around a little bit until you find one which fits best. And I think that maybe the polynomial one of order 2 is a reasonable one, and I will now use the same trend line for all of the others as well. So I close here. I click over here. Trend line and the polynomial one of order 2, close, and over here as well, trend line, the polynomial one of order 2, and you see that the points are not all of them connected, but they're reasonably close. Okay, now you want to rename these things here. Okay, that's the important thing. Rename to make it meaningful. But now what you have is you have now by making a trend line, what you're doing is you're essentially averaging the values over time, so to say. Okay, you're averaging them graphically. And now, if you have a trend line like this, it's really easy for you to read values which are between points. Okay, you can say, okay, at 4 minutes, what is my value over here? You can read it off. And that's essentially the point of having this kind of line of best fit system. So now let's have the following, I'm zooming out again, now let's have the following situation. Let's say that for whatever reason you do not have all of the data, but that some of the data is missing. So let's say that you did not make this measurement over here. You either forgot about it, or you didn't have time to do that, or you simply whatever. So I'm going to erase it and let's see what happens. In Beaker 2, the 75 degree value, which is where is the 75 degree, which must be this one over here. No, yes, this dot, this red dot over here should now disappear, because I'm going to erase this one. Yes, you see it disappeared. Yeah. So what do you see? It still is able to draw a trend line, and you actually see that it didn't really change a lot, and we're missing this value over here. So that's fine. You do not have to have all of these values here. Some people are really worried because they say, okay, I'm going to make a measurement every 2 minutes, and then they're missing the time because they didn't have time to make a measurement every 2 minutes, and they're measuring it after 2.5 minutes. Well, what are you going to do then? Well, then just write down 2.5 minutes, because you made it after 2.5 minutes. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that the x values, they do not have to be in equal intervals, because here between 9 and 12 minutes over here we have a 3-minute interval. Between 6 and 9 we have a 3-minute interval, and from 0, 1 and 2 we have 1-minute intervals each. The points are much closer together here. That's fine. That's why you're using an XY diagram, because you can plot any values that you like. So that's the important thing here. Yeah, just write down the value that you got at a certain time. Okay. Or, for example, now let's have the following situation. You discover, oh my gosh, over here I'm missing a point, but let's see what happens after, let's say, 25 minutes. So you added 25 minutes, and after 25 minutes it cooled down to 10,2 degrees. Now the question is, why does the 10.25 minutes, why does it not appear for Beaker 2? It didn't draw it in there. Well, because if you click on here, you see that it is not, with the blue boxes, it's not included. So what I do is I have to include it by pulling it down, and by pulling this one down here. And now what do you see? Isn't this cool? It will actually, I've expanded the diagram, and it will now actually it will actually plot this new point down here as well. Now what happened to the trend line? Now somebody came, somebody's ringing the bell, I have to quickly open the door. So where did I leave off? I think I just had to open the door. You see that the trend line doesn't work anymore. It's kind of, it goes all the way down here and it goes up, but actually we would say, nah, it's not the real, that's not the real trend. So maybe it's much better to remove this trend line and try a different one now. Click on the trend line, I erase it. And now let's go back over here, trend line, more trend line options, polynomial one. Let's see what happens if I increase the order. Yeah, that's basically now the better trend line. That's kind of a strange one as well, I would say. Okay, or a logarithmic one. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so so you have to go again and try around. By the way, order 2 means it's trying to draw a parabola here. Okay, because order 2 means x squared, so it's trying to draw a parabola here. Yeah, so that one would be probably a better one. I still don't quite like it because I think too high up here. So if you encounter something like this, it's probably better if you draw it in by hand. That's my view. Or a linear one certainly wouldn't work. Exponential one could actually work here. Nah, these points are too low. Okay. You see, I have a problem right now drawing a trend line because these are fantasy values which I entered. If you make real measurements, they are going to follow a real trend, so to say, but because I now included fantasy values which I made up myself, I have a problem now fitting in a proper trend line. Okay, so but that's basically the idea that I kind of wanted to communicate to you, is that you have to draw lines of best fit. And this of course means that some of the values are a little bit off from the line of best fit, and the line of best fit does not mean that you're really touching all of the points. It simply means that you're trying to make the distance of the points with a line as small as possible. So that's basically this kind of completes this explanation here. And what you have to do at home is you have to make sure that you not only choose the correct type of graph, but you also have to make sure that the graph is reasonably readable, and that you have readable, I mean access titles, access labels, giving meaningful names over here, and you also have to make sure that the graph is not cramped together so it's too difficult to see the points. So you have to make sure that there's a little bit of a layout issue involved here as well. Okay, so essentially that's basically all I want to say right now. I wish you all the best.